Hello, I am Jamie Buckland with the West Virginia Few Families United for Education, and I am thrilled today to be joined by three special guests, and we are going to talk all about educational entrepreneurship and Vela's microgrants. So to get started, I'm going to first go to Carrie McDonald, my friend Carrie. And Carrie, why don't you just introduce yourself to our audience? Tell us a little bit about you and your work.
Sure. Thanks for having us, Jamie. Excited to be here. I'm a senior education fellow at the Foundation for Economic Education and the host of the Liberated podcast, where I spotlight education entrepreneurs and microschool and school founders across the country. I'm also an education policy fellow at State Policy Network, Forbes contributor, and the author of the book Unschooled: Raising Curious, Well-Educated Children Outside the Conventional Classroom, that came out in 2019 and looked at kind of the early iterations of the microschool movement and of the growth and diversification of homeschooling. And of course, now that has taken off over the past couple of years of education disruption.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. All right, Delina from Kansas, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Yes. My name's Delina Wallace. I'm a homeschooling mom. I also help operate a co-op here in my small rural town of Kansas. I've also connected with a network of microschool founders in the Wichita area, and we have formed a group. It's called Wichita Innovative Schools and Educators, and we go by WISE. And we have about 25 to 30 microschools and tutoring centers, all innovative educators in the Wichita area. I love to promote everything that's outside the box, non-traditional learning environments, and love to support those who are doing this important work.
Thank you. Thanks for being with us today. And then to Lauren from Vela, if you'll introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Jamie. Thanks for facilitating this conversation today. There was a great panel with Carrie and Delina last night, and so really fun to just kind of pick up the momentum today. So I'm Lauren, and I'm the director of programs at Vela. I'm based in Michigan, but Vela is a national nonprofit fund that started in 2019, and we catalyze innovation in K-12 education by providing trust-based funding and fostering community building and increasing visibility for education entrepreneurs out there. And we trust that these entrepreneurs that we fund know how to support learners and families best. And we also trust the families that they know what types of educational opportunities will allow them to live into their own values. And I'll share a little bit more later, but to date, Vela's awarded more than 2,000 grants totaling $23.9 million to support non-traditional education models, which is pretty amazing.
I love it. It's unbelievable to me, like the direct impact that you guys are having for learners by fostering those communities all across. So super excited. All right, well, we're going to go right to these questions and try to kind of cover a variety of topics. We'll start with you, Carrie. You're traveling the nation. I got to host you here in West Virginia back in early December, and you're getting to see kind of firsthand what educational entrepreneurs are facing, trying to meet the needs of those learners. So if you could just share some of the trends that you're seeing that are exciting and bringing you hope, and then kind of on the flip side of that, maybe some of the barriers that you've noticed that we should be mindful of.
It is really such an exciting time in education. These education entrepreneurs are doing extraordinary things, really pushing through barriers. It's difficult to be an entrepreneur in any sector, but it seems particularly difficult to be an education entrepreneur given the highly regulated environment that many of these entrepreneurs operate in. And yet they're pushing ahead to create extraordinary learning models for families. And some of the kind of common themes I see in these microschool founders and education entrepreneurs are their models are very diverse. There's a wide assortment of different educational philosophies and approaches. And yet they're very collaborative often when they work together. And Delina might be able to talk more about this with the Wichita area entrepreneurs, even though they might have, different models and different sort of educational preferences preferences and different personal worldviews, these education entrepreneurs come together in a spirit of collaboration and knowledge sharing and encouragement and support for each other, which is really exciting to see. Many of the education entrepreneurs really focused on individualized learning models, really focused on personalized learning, kind of bottom up solutions as opposed to top down. And I think that it's just exciting to see what they're building. I think it's a real a game changer for American education to see these sort of decentralized options. Some of the barriers that these education entrepreneurs encounter in some states, for example, it can be particularly challenging to start a private school. And even though some of these microschool founders operate more under homeschooling or, as Delina said, tutoring, one challenge I've seen in certain states, for example, Nevada and Iowa, 2 states where it's not that easy to create a private school. And so kind of removing some of those barriers, making it easier to be an education entrepreneur could go a long way to unleashing the supply of new learning models for families.
Yeah. And of course, I'm a big fan of your work. And one reason behind that is because of the impact and the potential it has to influence policy through this storytelling and through raising awareness on these barriers. I like to say that kind of all the questions that we get in this space can be reduced back down to, what must we do to satisfy the law? How can we be compliant to the best of our ability, basically? And what do we have access to? What can we do? So whether we're a private school or a micro school, we kind of, all of those questions, or even from parents, they're really asking, what do I have to do to satisfy the law? And then what can I do? And Carrie, we just love that your work kind of brings up the storytelling aspect to that. And then, of course, raises the awareness on the barriers so that our partners in coalitions, the think tanks of the world, can kind of get to work to influence the policy changes that we need to see. So then, Delina, we'll go to you here. You've been encouraging educational entrepreneurs for a while there in Wichita as a homeschool mom. If you could talk about how families who maybe have been in that more traditional sit around the table kind of homeschool atmosphere, how they're finding a groove by creating communities and joining communities and learning to kind of school alongside one another.
Sure. Yeah, it's really just been kind of a natural thing as we've been homeschooling. I just find that families tend to want to have additional support. They want to share in resources. They want their kids to have time to play with others. We want to be outside of our 4 walls. Homeschooling is beautiful. We get so much freedom in what our schedule is going to look like and what we're able to teach. We have tons of family time, but we also believe it's really important to be involved in the community. And I think families are just recognizing that brings this element to their school, more vibrancy, just helps everything be more well-rounded when we are sharing in the workload and having our kids taught by others other than ourselves. That's important too. And so this has just kind of started. For a while, I was inviting one family into my home, working with myself and my kids. We'd all work together. Then we included another family, and now it's grown to, we have a co-op where we're getting together once a week with 12 families. It's 30 to 35 students in our co-op. And I think it's just, we're realizing that we can't necessarily do it all alone, and that's okay. My reaching out to others came when I recognized my own limitations and just said, I'm not the best teacher. I'm really not, but I know who is, and I know who can find, these resources, and I know who can help break this down for my students in a way that I'm unable to. So I think if homeschool moms can just kind of relax a little bit and try not to be everything in every subject for every child, and just allow others to be included in our learning time, I think it's just a really, really good thing for us. So.
Yeah. And I love that you're highlighting the reality. I've homeschooled now for 16 years. And I do remember when I started, there were these like giant homeschool moms that were doing everything. We're teaching physics. They were doing all of this. And I had these, a first grader and a preschooler. And I'm like, I just need to figure out like letter identification and reading. And but now we're seeing this shift in homeschooling where parents are realizing that it's not a bad thing to outsource.
Yeah.
And to consider that other experts can speak into your children and into your homeschool. But I will say that one of the barriers that I've constantly seen is, how do we have sustainable programs? How do these co-ops, these learning pods, now these micro schools, how do they actually launch and figure out the barriers that come along with that? And then how do they have sustainable funding? And so that kind of takes us straight to you, Lauren, to talk about where Vela kind of saw this gap and said, well, we can actually do something about it. So for us, what I love about Vela is they're actually listening to educational entrepreneurs. You guys aren't just, granting these micro grants. You're building a community around this educational entrepreneurship and learning from them what they actually need. And now we're excited because application season opened up last night. So if you could just share about Vela and what our audience needs to know to actually get in the community and find out more about the application.
Yeah. So I kind of echoing Carrie and Delina, I mean, people really want community in this work, and they want to know that they're not on an island doing work alone, and being able to network and collaborate with people and learn about how they're navigating various aspects of the non-traditional learning environment, the business side, all of that. And obviously one of the barriers is funding. And so we know that entrepreneurs in this education space are really resourceful, and a $2,500 or $10,000 micro grant from Vela gives them kind of the nod of approval and confidence to go for it and do it. But people can stretch that a really long way and do a lot with these fast cash, smaller grant amounts. So we're really excited that our micro grant program launched last night. So it's an opportunity to apply for $2,500 or a $10,000 grant. And we like to see everyday entrepreneurs apply for this. So when we say everyday entrepreneurs, we mean students, parents, educators, grandparents, community leaders that are building these unconventional learning environments within their communities. Again, they're fast cash grants that allow people to really quickly implement and put their ideas into practice. So, we're looking at, having some sort of public proof of concept and be ready to implement now. Vela doesn't do planning grants for folks, but we're really there to help you get that kind of first dollar in and welcome you into our community of thousands of entrepreneurs doing similar work and learn and grow and network there. So kind of like specifically at a high level with our grants, we want to foster permissionless innovation in education. So people that are really responsive to learners and families they serve, folks that are empowering families to learn and drive their own learning experience, encourage openness, creativity with respect to how learning happens. So really stretching the canvas on the where, when, how of school and how it's delivered. And again, really increase access for everyday entrepreneurs. So these smaller grant amounts, Vela is really expanding the notion of who's an entrepreneur, who's an innovator in this space, and really cultivating that community in a really diverse community of entrepreneurs that connect and collaborate and learn from one another.
Yeah. Carrie, if you could give us some examples, in getting to travel, I don't know how many states you've already been to showcasing this work, but could you give us some examples of how you've seen the grantees actually putting those grants to use?
Yeah, I mean, I think in all kinds of ways. I think access is a big priority for a lot of Vela grantees and education entrepreneurs more generally. I think a lot of them like to use their Vela funds to provide scholarships or to increase access to their programs, particularly in states where there may not be robust school choice policies, like thankfully you now have in West Virginia with the Hope Scholarship Program. But in other states where there isn't that access to kind of taxpayer funding for various educational models, the Vela funds can be used to provide those scholarships. And again, that's a key priority for these education entrepreneurs, whether it's scholarships or sliding scale tuition, looking at local philanthropy to make these models more available to more families. That's a key goal.
Yeah. Delina, what's happening in Wichita? How are they using, I had one grantee here in Southern West Virginia. They used theirs to help cover a portion of theirs to help cover fencing around their property because they wanted a space where the kids could run and play. And so a small portion of that was just to cover the fence so that the kids were more protected and able to, get outside and make the most of outdoors. So what are some things that you're seeing there in Kansas?
Yeah, I love that idea with the fencing. I mean, it's the very practical things that often just get overlooked, but you don't realize the importance of these types of things when it's your learning environment. You're trying to have a safe place for your kids. One of the things, since I work very closely with homeschooling families, these homeschool moms, we get together for planning sessions. We plan out our school year. We look at curriculum together. We're able to offer some of our field trips and our outings at a discounted price. One of the examples, we went up to Topeka, to the Capitol, last spring for a Teen Pact event. It's teaching kids how to be active in civics and civic duty and politics and understanding things and helping them to be leaders. So, it's wonderful. I love that Vela offers these funds in a trust-based manner. Because there's a lot of variety. We did purchase some Chromebooks for 10 of our students that needed them for some of their online programs. And we also were able to expand our services to more kids in the community outside of our immediate co-op and our own little micro school. We expanded to the greater community for a robotics class and some summer programs. We did a drama thing. And so just being able to offer scholarships or discounted tuition for those families. So it's wonderful, the funds. And I love that Vela truly does just believe in the entrepreneurs and that we are serving our community of learners in individualized ways. So yeah, it's wonderful. It's been great.
Yeah. Here in our program at Appalachian Classical Academy, it's just our 1 day a week hybrid homeschool program, but we brought in an artist. Now, I signed up for the class, but then the response was so huge, I had to remove myself from the class because we didn't have enough seats for me to take it. But we brought in an accomplished artist who is from our area, and she's teaching a drawing class. We have 15. We have some moms and dads taking it with their students, but we were able to compensate her as the artist to come in and teach that class and raise awareness about our program. But we were able to offer it for free for the students in the class. And it is amazing. I just get to go by with my coffee as I'm going off to get lost in my inbox. And they're all in there laid back, listening to classical music, sketching out, and they were able to purchase like quality materials and medium. So to me, that's like the difference in just putting a program together and kind of using whatever pencils you can find. And that's what traditional homeschoolers often, that's what we're used to, is like whatever resources we can come up with. So Vela really is adding beauty in a big way, I think, in impacting these learners. So we're going to wrap it up with that. Lauren, why don't you tell us where we should go to learn more if we're interested in applying for a Vela grant?
Yeah, so the application opened yesterday, and it is open on a rolling basis through early October 6th, to be specific. So applications can be submitted at any time throughout that period, and we'll review at kind of 8-week cadences throughout the year. So starting 8 weeks from now, we'll start reviewing, and then we'll move forward from there. So Vela edfund.org is where all of the grant information lives. And I think it's also important to note that, aside from unconventional learning environments, so the PADS, the homeschools, the co-ops, unschools, Vela also does provide funding to those ecosystem builders. So the content, infrastructure supports, resources, platforms, and other programming that folks can utilize in that out of system space. And then also kind of another bucket is community builders or catalysts. So the support and guidance for families along the way, but then people that are contributing to knowledge sharing and collaboration among entrepreneurs in different communities. So just wanted to make sure that folks know it's not just for those that have a learning environment, but all the people providing supports to that space as well. So yeah, our website has all of the up-to-date information, and Jamie, Carrie, Delina, I'll make sure all of you have information, and we're getting a handout to send out to people so that you can use that to spread through your networks as well.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, because the FEW is also a recipient. So last summer, those funds were essential to us being able to stay in the game and do our work. So ladies, thank you so much for joining today. We will drop all of that information in the comments, and happy Wednesday to everyone. We're making it through the week. So you ladies have a great afternoon. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie.
Jamie.